Hello and welcome to Toby and the Whole Truth with me, Toby Jepson. I've been in the music and entertainment business for over 30 years, specifically as a songwriter, performer, music producer and music business consultant. I've also spent time in the film and TV industries. I've managed artists, tour managed, co-written songs for and with others. I'm a creative writer of fiction and have written and directed music videos through my film company, Big Bad Films. And most recently, I've entered the world of journalism by becoming a radio presenter for Planet Rock. This series of podcasts and my mission is to get beyond the myths, the glamour and the misconceptions by peeling back the layers and exposing the true beating heart of what it means to be in today's ever-changing entertainment industries. I've invited friends and colleagues from across all sectors to talk about their lives and experiences and shine a light on the realities that lay behind the curtain. So sit back, relax, and let's welcome our guests for today. Andy Coppin is one of the world's leading live concert promoters and is perhaps most famous for being one of the architects of rock and heavy metal festival Download. Starting out as a rock DJ in local pubs and clubs, Andy quickly established himself as a prominent figure in the UK rock scene of the late 1980s as the booker and promoter for Nottingham Rock City. His subsequent rise to becoming the executive president of UK touring at Live Nation is nothing short of breathtaking. But what of the man? What makes this most driven of characters tick? A fellow Lincolnshire lad, Andy still resides in the county he loves, and that's where I caught up with him to explain all.
Hi Andy, great to have you on Toby and the Whole Truth podcasts. Thanks for joining us today. I'd like to get the conversation underway by just sort of giving a little bit of background. I sort of realised today when I was sat down sort of thinking about me and you and our relationship that we've known each other for, I would probably say, about 30 years. How does that make you feel?
Well, it makes me feel old. No, but the other thing is how quick that's gone. I feel like, a lot of it is just last week. I first got to meet you and the band and, got to meet your parents and got to meet, the other members of the band's families as well. So, it's just incredible how quick time has gone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just to kind of, what I like to do in these podcasts is give you an opportunity to sort of just basically give a little potted history of, the what you do. Now, the way I kind of tend to sort of ask my guests to do this is to pick upon what you think your key role is. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be your practical role. I think I've had people say things like, I think I'm a communicator, you know what I mean? That sort of thing. But just for the interests for the benefit of the listeners, if you could just give a brief explanation of what you think your key role is, what you do, and give everyone an idea of that.
My role is I'm a concert promoter in the UK. I head up the touring division of Live Nation. Live Nation are the biggest concert promoter in the world. And I've been with them now, it's nearly best part of 20 years. And I'm a booker, promoter. I run a department of 15 people, promoters, assistants, that's just directly, and then indirectly I have a huge marketing department, ticketing department, accounts, everything that's involved with putting shows on. So I guess a master of ceremony is a good title for what I do, because I get involved with so many different things. And people that have heard of me and know me, those that have known me for a long time will remember me back from the days when I used to run Rock City in Nottingham, and I was started out DJing there. To nowadays, I guess most people associate me with Download Festival, and Download Festival was always going to be, the naughty cousin of Monsters of Rock, if you like. Monsters of Rock Festival, which ran at Donington Park right throughout the 80s up until the mid-90s. I actually was there in 1980 for the very first one as a fan, as a punter, and it wasn't until towards when it got into the 90s where I was kind of helping them out with promotion and what have you. I wasn't working for the company. They just hired me because of my contacts and I guess my knowledge of music to help promote Monsters of Rock. So moving forward to 2002, when I was headhunted to go and work for the company that originally put on Monsters of Rock, I was brought in, and my main role was to help them put a festival back together into Donington. That year, 2002, they'd just done Ozfest. Ozzy and the family were riding high. They'd just done the Osbournes on MTV, which was obviously huge. So Ozzy was super riding high. They did an Ozfest at Milton Keynes in 2002. System of a Down, Tool, it was really big, hugely successful. And then the idea was that the following year, they pulled me in, and it was like, we want you to help us put a festival on, an annual event at Donington Park. And we want it to be a 2-day event. We want it to be camping. We want to open things up a bit more than just the 1-day event that they'd had with Monsters of Rock and Ozfest. So that's really where, what my role was when I got pulled in. And, myself and Stuart Galbraith, who originally worked at MCP, which was the company that ran Monsters of Rock, together we built Download Festival. It was Stuart's vision. And he'd seen something in me that he knew I was somebody who could help him achieve the vision. And I guess, we've ended up where we are today. Stuart left in 2007, and I was given the role of, head of Download, if you like. And I've been running it and booking it exclusively. I've got a team around me that helps, of course, since 2008.
Wow, it is an incredible story. I mean, because like you say there, we met really. My first memories of you were at when we first played at Rock City, and we were opening. I think actually the first time we properly met. My memory, you could probably correct me on this, but I seem to remember it was when we opened for Cinderella. I don't know whether it might have been, we might have even met earlier than that, I don't know, but I think that was roughly around the time that we were doing, because whenever Little Angels used to play Nottingham, we originally started playing at the Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Mardi Gras?
I remember the Mardi Gras. I actually never went to the Mardi Gras, but that was a real kind of, a hotbed of all the new acts. And if you talk to lots of bands from that era, the Mardi Gras was, that was on the circuit. That's where the band played. And then the next step up when bands came back to Nottingham was Rock City. And it was around that time when, the band first played there that I was introduced to, what an exciting band Little Angels were. And we met, we clicked, everybody on your crew, and a lot of people forget the relationship that Little Angels had with the venue when you were playing bigger venues, or you were going to be doing. I remember, you going out with Bryan Adams, and when you played at Milton Keynes. If you needed to do a warm-up, the Little Angels would come to Rock City and right. do that. Many, many times we did that. Or if it might be the start of a tour, the warm-up show would be at Rock City before you went out and did the tour. And that relationship that the venue had with the band, the relationship I had with you was super, super important. And also, I know that, the band members would come to Rock City from time to time, even when they weren't working. It was somewhere to come occasionally and hang out. And yeah, it was, we had many good years, many good nights, and many incredible gigs.
Oh, absolutely, pal. No, thank you for that. Now, I mean, I think, a big part of the conversations that I've been having over the last few weeks with these podcasts has thrown up this very, very important strand to everything to do with the music business for me, which is about the relationships. I think people don't, put enough emphasis on the fact that it is all about the people, isn't it? I mean, this business is built off the back of personalities and people and relationships that you build and trusts that you build. And that's one thing I remember about, us on Rock City, is that we loved the venue. We absolutely loved being there. It had a reputation before we even turned up of being the greatest place to play in the world. And we were so grateful to even get the opportunities to play. And I know that, for us, the very fact that you as a promoter took notice of us and were happy for us to be there, and you gave us so many opportunities, because you did. You kept having, right. I remember, you go back to those early days when we headlined for the first couple of times. There really wasn't that many people there, and I'm sure you probably lost a lot of money. But you kept having us back, and you kept pushing, and we returned that favour, like you say, because we loved you and we loved the venue. And I think that is a massive part of what this business is really about, isn't it? Probably more uniquely than most other businesses, actually.
I'd agree with that. I mean, I think I look back at the relationships that I've built over the years with bands, with tour managers, with agents, with record labels, with the media, and the fact that I still have those relationships now. And even if I don't talk to somebody for a couple of years because our working lives aren't crossing at that time, when we do talk, it's like we were talking yesterday. Yeah. And that's totally born out of the relationships that were built right in the very, very beginning. I remember when I first started at Rock City, it had a good reputation for a gig, but it had a bad reputation of the way that they used to treat the media. The security was a little bit rough. I remember speaking to the guys at Kerrang, and we hate coming in to review a show at Rock City because we struggle to get in. Security are always a little bit rough with us and what have you. And I said, well, look, I want you to come and review as many gigs as possible. It wasn't lost on me the fact that when people opened up Kerrang magazine every week, if there was a gig at Rock City, obviously the emphasis is on the band, but that is the show is at Nottingham Rock City, and they'd review, I guess, anything between 8 and 12 gigs a week in Kerrang. And once I'd kind of started to build the relationship with them, we were almost in every single week because we were busy with shows. I also knew that the shows themselves would be great because the Nottingham crowd was incredible. We would always I remember at the time, it's very, very simple. We were selling the most amount of tickets for any venue outside of London. And that was, for someone like Nottingham, we were competing with Birmingham, Manchester, some of the big cities. But Nottingham Rock City was, agents used to tell me, and managers said, I want to put my band in there because I know the tickets are going to sell. The atmosphere is amazing. The way that the club was built and the way that it was structured, and it is even like that to this day. And I haven't worked there for 20 years, but wherever you are in the venue, you're right on top of the stage. Yeah. So the band feel that they're really close to the audience. The audience feel that they're really, really close to the band. The atmosphere and the sound in there is amazing. The road crew, the history of the road crew, the Hells Angels that used to run the doors and used to run the road crew. In fact, some of the guys are still there, and Neil and Julie who run the catering. They're still doing the catering at Rock City now for the bands. And I knew that we had something that I just had to work and nurture a little bit. And I definitely got the media on board. And then just talking with bands, giving them an extra case of beer after they'd done the gig, just making a real fuss of them. I mean, one thing I never forget. I was a fan. I am a fan, and I've never ever lost that. I'm excited to meet bands.
Exactly.
It's, super excited, and I still get starstruck when I see bands. I can get a bit tongue tied and all the rest of it because there's a little bit of hero worship there, and I'm never going to lose that. And when I consider I've been a promoter now nearly 35 years, and I still have that feeling, I know that that's really, really important. And the bands that used to come through, and if we go back to days of Little Angels, but Thunder, the Almighty, and then a lot of the American bands were coming through. I remember doing Nirvana on the Nevermind. Yeah. I did I think it was the first or second show with Pearl Jam, Guns N' Roses, Foo Fighters, David Bowie came through, In Excess came through, Blur, Oasis. And here's another thing, Oasis, interestingly enough, and it's so bizarre. When Oasis played at Rock City, I hated them. I hated everything about what I was reading in the press. I thought, who are these arrogant upstarts? But from a business point of view, they were booked. Funnily enough, MCP were the promoter. I was just the venue, but I would be the guy on the ground in Nottingham to help promote the show. In fairness, they didn't need a lot of promoting Oasis because they were super hot. And I remember the guy, Connell, at MCP at the time, he'd call me up and he said, look, we want to do Oasis at Rock City. Everywhere else they're playing around the country, they're playing 600 to 700 capacity venues. We want to see if we play Rock City, it will show us just how big the band is if they sell it out. And at the time, Rock City was 1,700 capacity. So we were nearly 1,000 people more than most of the other shows around. They're playing Newcastle, Riverside, etc. And we put the show on sale, and it sold out in a second. And wow. I remember Connell at MCP was like overjoyed. I'm still hating them, by the way. I'm still like, oh my God, they're sold out. Oh, this indie band, and they're just rubbishing everybody in the press. And on the day, I mean, we just had a venue full of scallies. They brought all the mates down from Manchester. They were what we call in the traders spinning passes. Liam was coming into the production office, and Maggie, who was their tour manager, American girl, she'd been with Depeche Mode at the time, prior to that, and she was their tour manager. And Liam would come in and go, I want 5 passes. And she said, what do you want them for? I've got some mates here, blah, blah, blah. So she'd write out these passes, give them to her. He'd then go outside and he'd sell them. He'd be selling passes to his own show. But he'd be laughing about it. It's just all that, naivety of what the business was all about. So there was spinning passes. It was a crazy, crazy day. And then Maggie said to me, she said, Noel, the guitar player, he needs to do some phone interviews. Have you got somewhere where he can go and do them? I said, well, the only place he can do them is in my office. And it was just small, almost like a little broom cupboard.
I remember it, yeah.
And it was like there were 2 desks, and the desk, there's a phone on each, and I'm sat at my desk working. Anyway, in he came. He had a black eye because he'd got into the fight. I think it was the night or 2 nights before at Newcastle Riverside. Somebody had got on stage. Radio 1 were there. Joe Wiley, Liam there's a huge fight, and then their tour bus gets all smashed. He's still got the black eye. Anyway, I'm working away. He's doing this phone, and I'm listening to him talking on the phone, and it blew my mind. This guy, super focused. He was talking about other bands at the time, Manic Street Preachers, Suede, and he was saying to, he said, those bands, they go to the US. All they do, they'll play New York and they'll play LA. He said, when we go to America, we want to play everywhere. That's the only way we're going to break this band. You can't just play the major cities. You've got to go out there. And I thought to myself, God, he really knows what he's talking about. I hadn't picked up that he obviously previously been the guitar roadie for Graham out of In Spiral Carpet. So
that's right, yeah.
He'd been on the road, and he'd kind of obviously he'd picked up what was, you know, all the what was right and what was wrong. But just listening to him, I'm thinking, you know, this guy is switched on. I'm super impressed. And he did 2 or 3 interviews, and you know, he said thank you, and he was gone. Anyway, I thought, oh, I'll go up and I'll go and watch him. I remember I went up those stairs, got up to the stage at the side of the stage, and I walked through. And they were all stood in a line, obviously, other than Tony McCarroll, the drummer. The 4 of them in a line, and the wall of sound that they were pushing out to the crowd was unbelievable, and the crowd was going crazy. And I thought, I wasn't overly familiar with their music at all. I think I had a couple of singles, Shaker Maker and Supersonic, that I was aware of and knew of and recognised, but I knew nothing else. But it was literally this wall of sound that they put out, and the crowd reaction. And that was a big memory. This is 94, I think. And then 2 years later, they're selling out Nebworth 2 nights, just incredible. So, you know, the whole Rock City thing for me, and that's just one experience.
That's a brilliant memory, mate. Brilliant.
Oh, super. I remember, you know, David Bowie came. He was doing just wanted to play in clubs, and he.
Was that Tin Machine then?
No, this was. I've forgotten the name of the album. It's the one with the album cover where he's got that long, like Union Jack jacket on.
Earthling. Earthling.
Yes.
Yeah. Was it Earthling?
Yes. Yeah. And he was doing a small club tour. Again, this guy walked through the door and spoke to everybody. He spoke to the cleaners. He spoke to the security staff. He spoke to the cloakroom. Just, hello, how you doing?
Yeah.
You know, what's your name? An absolute class act. Now, this is, you know, David Bowie, who obviously could sell out stadiums. He was headlining festivals, and he was coming to play Rock City. But as a human being, and again, I listened to, he was being interviewed in the small room downstairs, what we used to call the basement disco 2, and prior to the show, and he was being interviewed by the local press, Radio Trent, etc. And again, just listening to him, you know, this guy, absolutely, totally focused, was so generous with his time to everybody. And I remember when the gig finished, and the back of the stage, he was going straight out into his car to go, and he came off stage. And any of the security and any of the road crew that were there, I was there obviously at the back of the stage. He shook our hands and thanked us all. Everyone, the road crew, security, anybody. I mean, none of this like head down, not eyeballing anybody. Yeah. He just gave people his time, and I was very lucky being at Rock City and being able to experience those moments. You know, young bands coming through and growing and building through like yourselves. You know, same with Thunder, the Almighty. You know, you know, Pearl Jam just playing in the little room downstairs, but it sold out and we moved it upstairs. And Rage Against the Machine actually played in the basement.
No way.
Played in the basement, and then literally about 6 months later, they played upstairs, sold out. Tool was the support band.
Wow.
Which is all of these amazing experiences.
Oh,
I was very, very lucky that, you know, through the 13 years that I was there, getting to meet and see all of those bands and just be a little part of of their touring. So but moving on from that and getting into what I'm doing now, it's a very, very similar thing. It's just on a bigger scale. I try and be as personable as I can. It's a bit harder, obviously. At Download, there's like 100 bands, and I try and say hello to everybody.
Listen, I have seen you operate at Download, and you are the most available person that there is there, and it's astounding. I mean, this is I think massively testament to your success. This is what I'm trying to get at, really, is that I've always believed that this business is, like I said earlier on, about building the relationship and building a situation for yourself where you can be confident that people are going to want to work with you. And that's not easy to do in a very high pressure business like the music business that changes, is mercurial. We don't know where it's going. I mean, look at the situation we're in now. It's extremely difficult and hard to know what's going to happen, once this whole situation starts to the dust is going to settle. I mean, I don't necessarily want to touch upon that today because we perhaps want to keep to more optimistic things. But I think what I'm saying is that you build yourself based on the way that you carry yourself in this business, and I've always believed that to be true. And I've met a lot of people that got it so badly wrong that they're no longer considered. They don't have friends in this business anymore because it's very hard. I think it's very hard to maintain a good relationship if you're behaving badly with people and treating people awfully and not giving respect that people deserve. And that's a great example, talking about Bowie, how he did that, because one of the biggest stars in the world, giving his time so generously like that's nothing to do with him being a big star. That's to do with him being a decent human being.
Correct.
And that is it. And I see that in you. I see that in all the people that I've maintained a relationship with in this business, of the same types of people. And I think that something you said earlier on really, really touched me, actually, that you said that you are still a fan. You're still that guy. And I say exactly the same thing to people when they ask me about that sort of how you managed to be still here. It's because I'm the same as you. I'm that kid that queued up in the rain to buy the latest White Snake album and then, queued up in the rain in Scarborough. I remember to go and buy my ticket to go and see Gillan at Hull City Hall on the Magic Tour. I was that kid in that queue. And I don't think that ever changes. I think once you've had that experience and you understand what that means, if you're smart, you embrace that and you bring it into yourself and you remember that as the basis for why you're in it in the first place.
Yeah. I still get super excited about, new music, new tours, tours with acts who I've worked with for many, many a year. And just going back to the relationship thing, is I always was brought up, my parents brought me up, treat others in the same way that you want to be treated.
Yeah.
And, I've been well and truly shafted, over the years by certain bands, certain managers, certain agents, thankfully not too many. And it is a disappointment. And I have said to acts before. I've certainly said to agents. I'm going, what? There is no need for you to be this way.
No.
If you have got issues, if you've got struggles, and I totally get it. There could be a situation where the artist is crazy. And that's being passed down to the manager, who's then passing it down to the agent, who's then passing it down to the promoter. And I'd say this to all agents: say, look, if you need help, if you need assistance, all you got to do is ask. You don't have to shout. You don't have to demand. If you came to me and went, you're not going to believe it, this manager is driving me crazy. This is an agent talking. Manager's driving me crazy. I really need you to help me out on this. I don't know many people that wouldn't turn around and go, whatever you need. What do you need? What do you need? What do you need me to do to help you? And I've seen I saw throughout the years in the very, very early days, funnily enough, with Rod Smallwood, who manages Iron Maiden, in the very, I don't know, I guess I'd been at Rock City 3 or 4 years, and he managed the band Skin, who obviously I know Skin toured with Little Angels and many other acts. And Skin were managed by Rod Smallwood. And I used to put on lots of gigs with Skin. I helped them promote the first record. And I remember Rod Smallwood calling me up and he's gone, I've been really impressed with what you've done with that Skin record. I want you to work all my bands. And at the time, obviously, he was managing Iron Maiden. He was managing Halloween. He was managing Curb Dog. There was so many of these acts. And effectively, he wanted me to help with the promotion of whenever a tour was happening, whenever an album was coming out. And that was just born out of, me putting myself out to help Skin.
Yeah.
That eventually got me, well, actually, it didn't even take that long. But because I'd done such a good job there, I'm now working with Iron Maiden. I still work with Iron Maiden to this day. Rod, he calls me and he'll refer to me as family. He goes, "You're family. You're part of the Iron Maiden family."
Yeah.
And that means a lot, and I've got that relationship, thankfully, with countless other acts. They know that they can always ring, they can always ask me, can always email me, an idea, just to float something. I'll be as honest as I can be. Sometimes you have to say things that the other person doesn't necessarily want to hear, but at least you're being honest. You're explaining the reasons as to why you wanted to do something a certain way, and just be open. And if you treat people right, they will always come back to you.
Yeah,
always. And I've had that. I've had that mantra in business right from the beginning. I'm the same with my staff. It's, yes, I'm their boss, but they know they can call me at any time about anything.
Yeah.
Personal, if they're illnesses, physical, male or female, whatever, it's not a problem. My door's always open. I'll listen. I'll give an opinion if they want it. I'll just sit there and let them unload. No problem.
Yeah.
Because I said this to one of the main seniors at Live Nation. I've said it a few times now, but the first time I said it was about 4 or 5 years ago, and I went, you know what? Any of my team would take a bullet for me, and you know what? I'd take a bullet for any one of them. And that's the reality. I'm nothing without the team around me, and I feel that they will probably say that they would be nothing without having my guidance and my support. And I can't do these things on my own. You've got to have a good team around you.
But it is a big skill, Andy. And I think, again, I come back to the idea that, these things are inherent in certain people. And I think, just to touch upon it very briefly, I think the pressures and anxieties and stresses that accompany this business, especially with someone like yourself, where you're heading up a big team and a huge company with massive expectations, with lots of money at stake and lots of people to manage and to navigate. I can imagine. You tell me briefly, that how that rolls out, and I think you've got to be a certain type of person to be able to deal with that. And I was so glad that you said about your mum and dad there, because I'd like to ask you about your home life in a moment. We'll just get onto that in a moment. But I think that's incredibly important. Where you come from and how you talk to people makes the person you are as you go into life. And so, can I just what I'd like to do before I talk about the anxiety issues, I would like to just go back a little ways. Can you? Because I'm really interested in what I call the eureka moment. What was your? It's a two-part question. What was your home life like in terms of your mum and dad's support about what you wanted to achieve? Was there? Because I always sort of say to people when people ask me similar questions, my mum and dad were massively supportive. It was never in question. If I wanted to be a rock and roll star and wanted to call myself that, they would support it, and they bought me my first guitar. Whereas I've got friends who were in the music business or in bands that had no support from their parents at all, and it was regarded as, the whole get a proper job nonsense and all that sort of stuff. Was your home life supportive in that way? Did your mum and dad see that? Was it definitely part of a plan when you were a young lad and you were going through school? Did you want to be in the music business? How did all that start? And can you tell me the eureka moment where you realized exactly what you wanted to do? Because this is a massive part of these podcasts, is trying to find the motivations.
Right. Okay. I was a huge music lover. I was working for W.H. Smith's at the time, but I was a music lover before I started work. As a young boy, I was big into music. Used to spend all my pocket money on, going out and buying singles. I couldn't afford albums. Obviously, at Christmas and birthdays, I'd get bought albums. When I started work at W.H. Smith's, and it was not the W.H. Smith's the shop, it was the W.H. Smith's distributor. So we used to distribute all the newspapers, magazines, because I'm from Lincoln, I still live there now. We used to distribute all the newspapers and magazines to all the newsagents throughout Lincolnshire. And through that, it was a job that I hated. I mean, I'm packing up magazines, I'm putting them in boxes, we're tying them up, sending them off to newsagents, but it was a job.
How old were you at this
point? I was 17. Okay. I'd kind of dropped out of school. My attention span was not very good. So I used to struggle with education. I left school with 1 level GCSE back then, which was in English language. Everything else, I just couldn't focus my brain on it. It wasn't where I was at. Both my elder brother and my younger brother were a bit more studious. They go to university. My parents were a bit like, what are you doing with your life? And I said, well, I wouldn't say I was struggling at school. I was everybody's mate. Was the class joker. I was a good communicator. And then I left school, and Mum said, oh, you need to go to further education to get the exams that you didn't get. And I remember going to college, did a year at college. Again, nothing materialized out of that. And I just went and got, the first job that would accept me, which was W.H. Smith's distribution. Now, the interesting thing was that I used to get all the music papers, Melody Maker, NME, Sounds at the time. Sounds was the more on the rock side, and Sounds magazine or paper that it was actually printed in Lincoln, bizarrely. So we used to get it. We used to get Sounds newspaper 2 days before it would end up on the shelves. I'd be in there seeing who was touring before, because there's no social media, nothing. And I used to go and see all these gigs at Nottingham Rock City, Nottingham Royal Concert Hall, Sheffield City Hall, Leicester de Montfort, all that were in like an hour and a half's radius. And I'd be able to get my, I'd be send a postal order off to get the tickets and all the rest of it. I don't want to digress too much, but I was spending all my money on records. That's it. I was buying vinyl, all the new stuff that was coming out. I was spending all my wages on that. I loved music. And I kind of got this vision in my mind that I wanted to be, I wanted to get into radio. I don't know what it was. I think, I was kind of being seduced by the radio DJs, because obviously you'd be listening to the new music on there. And then I got offered somebody knew I'd got a big record collection, and there was a pub in Lincoln, and it was called the Red Lion. It was on the high street, and it was back in the early 80s. There were things called fun pubs, and basically these fun pubs would have like a little DJ booth in them.
Yeah,
and people would go there, and there'd be a DJ playing before they went on to the nightclubs.
Yeah,
but of course they were all sort of trendy. They were just playing pop music and dance music and what have you. But during the week they were empty. So one of the managers at this place, the Red Lion's, going, maybe I should do a rock night, because on a Tuesday night we've got nobody in. But maybe if we do a rock night, maybe we could just get some rock people in. And there was a guy who I knew who was aware I got a big record collection. He said to me, he said, why don't we go? And I know the guy, the manager at the Red Lion. He said, why don't we go in and do this rock night for him? I went, yeah, okay. So we started doing that. There was me and him. His name was Jacko, and there was me. And we got paid $5 each. We were doing Tuesday night, and the pub was packed because there was no one was catering for the rock crowd back then. This is, I guess in the early 80s, and then Jacko fell out with the manager over something really trivial, and the manager called me. He says, "Look, Jacko's not going to be well. I want you to do the Tuesday night on your own, and you're going to get a tenner." I'm like, oh my God, my money's doubling. And it was really bizarre the way that we DJ'd. I'd play a track, then he'd play a track. We're both together in the DJ booth. He'd play one track, and then I'd play another, and we just flip-flop. And suddenly I started doing the whole night. And then I'll fast track a little bit. I'm still working at W.H. Smith's at the time. And I was doing this DJing work on a Tuesday, which was great. And then I got offered doing another night in another club, a trendy club, on a Saturday afternoon, a rock night. People used to come from Grimsby, Scunthorpe, Cleethorpes, Peterborough. So nobody was catering for, again, the rock crowd on any kind of level. And these Saturday afternoons used to be amazing. And then I got to hear about Rock City in Nottingham. I'd gone to a couple of gigs there, but then I heard they were doing a rock night on a Friday. And I used to go we used to get a coach up from Lincoln. We'd go to this rock night on the Friday night, and I'm like, oh my God, it was amazing. Like going to Vegas. Like, this is incredible. And I was desperate to work there. And got a fast track a few years. It's the tail end of 1988. And a friend of mine said, there was an advert in the NME, Rock City, looking for DJs. I'm like, what? He said, yeah, I saw an advert in NME. Of course, I rushed round to the W.H. Smith shop round the corner, and because I didn't read NME, I just read sounds, and there was no advert in there. So go back to my friend and said, there's no ad in there for Rock City. He said, oh, no, it was in last week. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to ring them. So I ring Rock City up. I talked to the manager there, a guy called Glenn Mason, and he said, well, to be honest with you, we've already got a DJ sorted, but we just started talking. And he said, well, I tell you what, he said, why don't you come for an audition? He said, we've got a little room down, the big room is covered. I'm looking, I maybe have a DJ who'll play in the little room downstairs. He says, just come for an audition. Anyway, I go over. By this time, I'd converted all my vinyl onto CD. CD was like the big new thing. Yeah. And not many people had made the transition because it was still early days. I walk in with boxes and boxes of CDs. And I'll never forget, it was a Monday afternoon. There's nobody in Rock City at all, other than the cleaner. She's mopping the floor. Yeah. And the manager is opposite me. He's stood on the dance floor and he's like, do your stuff. well, I'm banging out, ZZ Top, Give Me All Your Lovin', Sweet Child of Mine, Guns N' Roses, Def Leppard, Animal, all these big songs. I'm banging. Anyway, after about 15, 20 minutes, he just goes, he does like the cut sign under his chin. I think, oh shit, this is. Anyway, he came up and he went, I want you to DJ up here, and I want you to start a week on Friday. I'm like, I thought you'd already got a DJ. He says, yeah, I have. I'm going to put him downstairs. You're going to play in the main room. I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible.
Right.
So I drive back to Lincoln. I'm super excited. And then literally 2 days later, the manager calls me and he goes, I need you this Friday. And I went, I thought it was next. He said, no, I need this Friday. He said, the other DJs have walked out because they were there. There's a guy called Mark Spivey and Jonathan Woodliff. They were supposed to be finishing the week before I started, or the week when I started. Anyway, they walked out. He said, so I need you. So I remember starting at Rock City on that particular night and on that Friday, and it was amazing. And I would DJ in between the bands during the week. So I suddenly was DJing 4 or 5 nights a week. My parents were going, this is ridiculous. You're in a dead-end job. You should be look at your 2 brothers. We don't like you being in there. It's too seedy, working in nightclubs and what have you. And I'm thinking, well, I have still got a day job. I'm DJing 4 or 5 nights a week. I'm getting paid. I'm not spending any money because my going out was working in mostly at Rock City, but I was still working at the clubs in Lincoln. I'm doing all right financially. Yeah. I was doing great. And then eventually Rock City, I started advising them on the bands that they should book.
Right.
And, you should book this band because this band's going down really well on the dance floor, on the club night. And they offered me a full-time job to go in and be their in-house promoter, still DJing. And I saw it as a great opportunity. I could give up the day job. I used to say to them, that's my grown-up job. And I was so pleased to put that to one side. My parents were like, I'm not sure this is the right thing for you. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
This is, I'm now doing something in the music business that I love, that I've really got a taste for. I'm pretty good at it. And I can just put all my heart and soul into it. And that was in 91 when that happened, when I went full time at Rock City. And I guess the eureka moment was certainly that audition.
Yeah.
That audition day where I'm going for an audition thinking I'm going to be for the DJ downstairs, and he's gone, no way, you're playing the main room.
And it sounds what's an amazing story, and what I think's really encouraging about that. I think, like I say, part of this whole podcast series is to kind of give people an insight as to where these motivations come from. It sounds like it was a very natural progression for you. It sounds like you had, you cottoned onto the idea of doing the DJ slots in the Red Lion. That all went well. That progressed to the next thing. You took it on, because part of the process, I think, with being, because I think that's creative. I think I always argue to people, it's being creative isn't just necessarily playing an instrument or doing a painting or building something. Being creative is a creative mind. It's about being able to take on an idea and move it into the next level and develop it and become something more with it. So I would argue that you've got a great creative mind. Then you took the idea and evolved it, but also you were, it's like anyone who's got sort of determination. It is about being there, isn't it? It's about being willing to rush round to the W.H. Smiths and find that magazine and in there. So I'm going to go and ring up Rock City out of the blue. It's exactly the same as we used to do, ringing up people like yourself when we were trying to find gigs as Little Angels in Scarborough. We didn't have a clue who the person was on the other end of the phone, but you did it anyway. because you're driven. It's a drive thing, isn't it? It's a motivational sort of force that you can't stop. It's something in you that you've got some kind of direction. I often sort of I often laugh about the fact that I've never had a plan in my life ever. I've never had a plan, and I still don't have a plan. But I'm glad I've never had one, because I let the sort of experiences that happen to me evolve that. Sometimes it's been a disaster. I've had massive areas of huge disasters in my life where it's just been complete barren wasteland. But it's been for a reason. I haven't made the right decision. I haven't pursued it correctly. So then I've corrected that path and I've moved forward. Do you recognise any of that, what I'm saying? Do you think that's part of the process for you?
I tell you what, it's interesting, and I swear to you, I've never thought of it in that way before. When you've said, when you've suggested that I have a creative mind, I've never thought that I have. But if I look back to what I've done and what I've needed to do to get there, I guess I definitely do have that creative mind.
Without a doubt.
I remember somebody saying to me years and years, funnily enough, when I was working at W.H. Smith's at the warehouse, and one of the managers said to me, if I can give you one bit of advice, he said, if anybody asks, is anybody out there who can do it, always say yes, always put your hand up, always be willing.
Absolutely.
And somebody else said to me down the line, somebody else that I met, and they said to me, they went, you know what, you should always say yes to something and then worry about how you're going to do it afterwards. You've said yes, you're in there, then worry about it. Don't sit there and go, I'm going to say no, or I don't think I can do that. Say yes. You're then in, you're committed, you've crossed that line.
But it takes a certain character, Andy, and I think that's a big part of what, I've always said to people out of the music business. It's a total unknown. By and large, it is a leap of faith into the unknown, driven by passion, driven by a need and a desire that you don't quite know where it comes from. And I think that goes across the whole strata of our business, not just people like me who perform and write songs, who have this sort of, vision of like wanting to perform. I think it goes right into the heart of everyone that takes part in this business, because how else do we do it? You've got to have that drive and ambition and want to take part in something, because the music business is such a kind of unique place, isn't it? It has a kind of rose-tinted view from the outside, but really it's incredibly precarious. It is, it's a place that can be a very lonely place to exist in. Hence you have to have your approach to it correct, I think. And I think, judging by the things that you've told us tonight on this, it's clear that a vast majority of the reason why you've been so successful is because of your open-minded drive, your positivity, your welcoming nature, which you've obviously got from I would imagine from your home life and growing up and these experiences. And I think that's everything. I really do, What I'd like to sort of just to finish up, if you wouldn't mind, 'cause it's been absolutely fascinating. I do this little thing with every guest where, to try and sort of like shake the tree a little bit, I'd like you to, if you wouldn't mind, give me 3 words that you think are the worst aspects of your character.
The worst? Impatient. I'm definitely impatient. Worry.
It's hard, isn't it? It's hard.
Yeah. I'm definitely I'm impatient. I'm a worrier, and I'm struggling for a third. Impatient. Definitely.
Okay. Well, listen. You know what? 2 is good enough. That's fine. That's fine. And okay. By the same nature, what do you think are your strongest traits?
My strongest traits are good communicator.
Yeah.
I'm a good relator, and I'm good at creating harmony.
Yeah. Great answers, mate. Great answers. Okay, fantastic. Well, the final thing I'd like to just touch upon here is which is what I always kind of close with, really, is what motivates Andy Coppin now? What is the future? Do you still have a wide plan? Are you still as ambitious as you ever were? Are you starting to slow down? Do you think you've achieved everything, or is it more a case of business as usual every day?
It's a really good question. I set myself goals all the time. And in my mind, I'm going, when I've achieved that goal, that's it. It's great. I'm done. But what I've found over the years and decades now, that when I've achieved that goal, I suddenly create another one. And then when I hit that one, I create another one. Yeah. But each time, I'm not looking that far ahead. I'm only looking to the next goal. And I think once I've achieved that, that's it. It's great. I'm done. There's nothing else for me to do. And then suddenly there's another goal. And even though I've been doing this year on year for at least the last 30 years, that I still have, it still hasn't clicked in my mind. You know what, Andy, there's going to be 5 more goals. There's going to be 10 more goals. It still doesn't click. And I think a lot of that is down to me being totally focused on that first goal. And that's it. So I've got that and think, what the fuck am I going to do now? I've got to have another goal. I've got to have another. So I have a huge amount of drive. I want everybody around me to be successful. That's something else, because I think that if you have a team around you that is also successful and you're helping them, it helps you too, and you will just get bigger and stronger. And I refer to, the team that I've built at Live Nation is we are untouchable. I know that if we're up against the opposition, we'll crush them. Right. Because everybody is super focused. If somebody falls down, we pick them up. If somebody's having the worst day, I'm really, really good at spotting, somebody who's having a bad day or something's not right with them. I can pull them in. I know how to talk to them. And it's amazing when you do talk to people. I say, what? I'll go, what's up? Nothing. Come on, nothing's wrong. I said, something's not right. No, nothing's wrong. I said, well, the way that you were today when I came in, I could definitely, well, actually, and then they open up. Yeah. And sometimes I'm not trying to fix the problem for them. Just, you know what? I'm here. Yeah. I want you to know that I can see when you're having a rough day, and I'm here and I've got your back. Yeah. And you know what? The team know when I'm not having the greatest of days. We laugh about it. They'll go, oh, we knew that you weren't in a good mood today. We just all kept our heads down because, of course, I'm ready to fucking fire up over some ridiculous nonsense. But, those kind of things, that the drive that I have is definitely setting myself the motivation is those goals. So when I just want to be the best at what I do. And if I don't achieve it, I really beat myself up over it. But I think, so what can I do to make myself better? And one of the things with me is I'll make sure that I'm in work earlier than the opposition. I'll be the last one to leave. I know that if an agent from America wants to, and they're in LA, they could be calling at 5 o'clock at night. It's midnight here. I'm going to answer that phone. Yeah. If that agent rings my opposition, they ain't answering the phone. They're in bed. They're out to dinner. They're doing their social thing. And that's fine. You keep doing that, because guess what? I'm going to be right at the front of the queue, looking over my shoulder, knowing that I'll always be ahead because I'm putting in the extra hours.
Mate, listen, that is incredibly inspiring. Honestly, it's been massively part of these podcasts for me is to get these stories, to get to the nub about the like I say, the motivational and inspiring, sort of how you get inspired to carry on in this game. Because I think a lot of people don't really know how difficult it is. But ultimately, I think it comes, like I say, I really believe it comes down to relationships and people. And you've been one of my best mates for years, and I've always been able to turn to you, and you just so eloquently described precisely how I always feel about our relationship, that I've had terrible times, down times in my career where I've rung you up and you've always picked the phone up. It's the great thing about you, Andy, is it's not about the position someone's in, it's the person themselves that you care about, and that's your strength, I think.
No, thank you for that.
No problem, my friend. Listen, absolutely brilliant to talk to you, and I know everyone's going to take some real inspiration from this conversation, and I thank you again. Thanks for joining us.
God bless you. Thank you.
And you, mate. Thanks a lot.
My thanks to Andy Coppin there for joining me on today's podcast. I'll be back next time with another fascinating character to tell us all about their experiences in the music and entertainment business. Until then, take care of yourselves. I've been Toby Jetson. This has been Toby and the Whole Truth podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Bye for now.
While most of us exist